Deep within the Russian borders, a young man is desperately mining in search for a once lost technology. For every swing he takes, minutes pass, then days, then months, and then there's silence. But when all hope seemed lost, he finally found it. The T-34 and the lost doctrine Massed Attack. Two lost technologies that would lead him to victory back in Britain. His name was... David quickly made his way back through a war-hungry Europe and sailed back all the way to the United Kingdom. There, he used his findings to take control of the country and enact the Massed Attack doctrine. Don't ask me how he managed to topple a government in less than a month, I have no idea. He just wrote that he was lucky that the current ruler had the rare bulletin brain disease. From there, he went wild and conquered the world with his tanks over and over again, each time being faster than the previous. And oh god, it was glorious! The EXP, the tanks, the fame, it was beautiful! But he had only managed the British Empire so far. How could he possibly do the same thing with other countries? Well, that's why I'm here. I am about to read to you the book Lost in Time. Rise of Nations, the Art of Speedrunning. Speedrunning video games is modern art. You spend hours upon hours playing the game only to increase your recorded time by seconds compared to your competitors. But it's worth it. The dopamine rush you get from achieving first place is enough of a reward for all of the effort you put in. That single number is enough to sink you down in the rabbit hole that is Rise of Nations speedrunning. Hundreds of Formables with hundreds of players, but only one can claim the title of first place in every category. Follow me and I will teach you how you can become a Rise of Nations speedrunner. But not just any speedrunner, but one of the best. Just like any game, Rise of Nations has its own page on speedrun.com. But since the game was created on Roblox, it will be under a subcategory, but you will still be able to find the game by just searching Rise of Nations. But don't confuse it with the game called Rise of Nations. It will be called Roblox Rise of Nations, not the other one. In here you will find it hard to navigate through the crowded screen, but there's only a few things you really need to focus on. Clicking on the leaderboards to see all the available formables and which one you wanna submit an entry to, or speedrun in other words. So just click on it, then select submit an entry. Then there's also the menu screen, or as I like to call the leaderboard. Here you can see all the other formables you can form and which is the top player at the moment. And as you can see, all of the categories should be filled unless there's been a new update. Rare, but it happens. And they have divided all the countries into the respective starting tiers. So if you are Germany as an example and form the European Union, you will be put under the 4 to 5 tier category. And if you are Belgium and form the EU, you will be put under the tier 2 to tier 3 category. Make sense? Good, because I'm not reading this again. Now that you've done all that, it's time to select a country you want to speedrun. And honestly, just pick whatever you like the most. I myself picked the colonial empires, since I like colonizing and it's a good flex. But when choosing a formable to speedrun, it's also important to determine what you need in order to be the fastest. And that's why I have organized the speedruns into 3 types. The quick ones that really only requires maybe 1 country or 2 microstates and can be easily conquered with some research and specialized infantry. Then the second one, which is the more than 2 justifications one, where you will have to use math and check the terrain. Math might be scary, but hear me out. If there are 3 to 4 justifications needed to form your formable, you will need tanks to be the fastest, because they are just so much superior in smaller numbers. For example, when I formed the Swedish Empire or Babylon Empire, where I used tanks to increase my time a lot compared to the competitors. Factories take 75 days to build, and a non-aligned country justifications time is also 75 days. So you see what I mean? Since you can justify in only 2 countries at a time, you can therefore build tanks during the 7 days until your 3rd war. And those tanks can also be used to conquer the first countries and get that extra 75 million treasury to build even more tanks. And then you can conquer the last 2 countries within seconds and achieve first place for these formables. But what about the 3rd one? The long game formables. Like the name suggests, you will be doing almost nothing for the first year or so because we're going to use math again. Not math. Even if you take out all the big countries you need to form at the beginning, you will still require to justify and conquer all the other smaller ones. And since your formable requires a huge amount of countries to form, that also means that you will be wasting a lot of time and risk to fall into debt. That's why it's important to get a strong economy to not only uphold that, but also get research and government spending cranked up to the highest amount possible. Because remember when I said non-aligned countries require 75 days to justify on neighbors? Well, why don't we just get fascism and halve that amount? And research spending and government spending is needed for that, because they both increase political power. And now, it's time for the guide through. At the start of the game, get 4 electronic factories, but wait a minute, this is an old one. We have to use the revised version, version 2 of the guide through, that was updated just 1 day ago. Yeah, a new update just launched and completely wrecked the economy by making electronics useless. But it's fine for us speedrunning in private servers and a sizable amount of public servers. At the start, quickly get political power gain instead of the factory output in the research tab, get one of each factory at the beginning excluding the civilian one, and start buying all the necessary resources. If you're close to a small country or microstate, invade and take their 75 million treasury, and then when everything finishes, just sell it to the AIs. I've created another list, but I've noticed that the consumer goods varies a lot, so you may have to sell fewer consumers to certain countries. And also get maxed out government spending and research spending when you can afford it. That should increase your political power gain by a sizable amount. And keep researching it in the menu because you'll want fascism as fast as possible. Begin with justifying on smaller nations and taking their treacheries, and keep building factories and keep selling until there's no more big countries left to sell to. And by the time you have nationalism, you should start invading like crazy, with specialized tanks for the specific terrain. Just spam that shit. And fascism has 3 justification slots now, so you better keep up. Now, all you gotta do is conquer everything you've justified on and keep conquering for every time you have justified on a new country. And keep doing this, and this will give you some huge skills in public lobbies. And if you've stayed for this long, check the description where I've provided some free private servers you can use for free. Do whatever you want with them, but I wouldn't recommend speedrunning longer formables since someone could just destroy all your progress. So either get your own private server or form only the quicker ones and middle ones. We have finally achieved first place, but at what cost? There's no more challenge anymore. We have already done everything we needed to become the very best, and standing at the summit of the mountain may be beautiful, but there's no way to go back down. We can only watch our footsteps we left behind and remember all the good times we had playing the game. Rise of Nations is already having a trouble with too few updates, but we might also grow out of the game and may not be able to witness its end. But there's still hope. New games may come out and we can finally experience the thrill of climbing up to an even higher summit, but that's far in the future. I'm sure I will enjoy Rise of Nations speedrunning for a while. The end!